control of all of that money. None. Got it?
At least she's not responsible for C4s that may be advertising in her campaign, nor does she have to report.
Now, by the way, I also think because she answered, I'm allowed to explore the line of question.
No, you're not. I'm done.
It's up to the chair.
We've sustained that. We're gonna move on to the next.
Okay, so I would like her to identify the people in the picture in that article. She's already started answering questions about the article.
Am I in the picture?
We sustained that. We're gonna move on from that, please.
I'm just disturbed by the fact that in the prior hearings, under another chairman, you guys ran this at least with some modicum of following rules. And the ability to develop a witness, the ability to establish their character. Okay, that happened to me when I was questioned. And now it's like we're trying to protect something. And I think it's wrong.
I will strongly say, no one's trying to protect anyone. We would like the truth to be shown in the documents that you provided that will support the fact that you have these complaints against Ms. Schmidt. That's all we're trying to do. I'm not here, I'm not an attorney, I'm not trying to run a trial. I'm not, Your Honor, I am just simply trying to run this in the best way that we can so that we get the facts that we need to make a decision. And I'm sorry if that doesn't meet your approval or you don't feel that that's in the right process, but this is all I can do. I worked with Mr. Richter. He is an attorney. He can advise on the proceedings, but all I'm trying to do is to get our commissioners the facts that they need to make a decision. So.
And I think an important part of that is the character representations that are made about the honesty and integrity of filings and the knowing or unknowing aspect. Because we know when we get down the line here, there'll be an aspect, as we saw in the Freeman matter again and again. I didn't know, I was confused. Okay, so when I'm asking questions about these matters, I want to tell the commission, and I will call myself to testify at some point about this, is that within the district, everybody was talking about it. There was a press conference about it. There was an article also in the Enquirer and on all the major TV channels about it.
You're testifying at this point, and that's not what we need to do. She answered the question. She said she didn't know. If you don't believe her, that's on you. But,
Okay.
however we feel about it, but I'm just saying she's answered the question.
So in January, the answer I heard was that in January, February, March of 2020, you were unaware that there was anything being purported that was nefarious involving the campaigns going on or dark money around the campaigns.
I was unaware. I was too busy door knocking 10 to
Okay.
12 hours a day.
The second quarter, April, May, June. Were you aware at that time in April, May, June? Remember your report was on June 4th. Were you aware at that point in time that there were nefarious things that had gone on relating to campaign on the campaign side with staffing and expenditures and on the dark money side that all revolved around the Larry Householder operation of shared resources?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. So what we're up to April, May, June, July, August, September.
It was sometime after the election when, and could have been a year after, when they had an article that showed all the connections. But I had no idea what those connections were. I did know there was dark money. I had no idea that dark money was tied directly or indirectly to Mr. Householder, and he is probably going to prison for it.
So wasn't Mr. Householder indicted somewhere around July, mid-July of 2020?
Well, then it could have been then. I don't remember.
Okay.
If he was indicted then and the information came out then, that's when I found out, when he was indicted.
Okay. So when that happened, did you have any discussions with Stephen Caraway?
No.
Or RJ Mancini about that?
No.
No discussions whatsoever?
No.
Okay. At any point in time, did you follow up asking about any things that happened? Once you realized some things might have happened in that time period, July, August, anytime after that time period, was there any time or any actions you took to try to understand what had happened?
I didn't understand completely what had happened. How would I have known what questions to ask? And besides, I ran my own campaign. There was media, there were mailers. They gave me bills. I paid the bills when they gave them to me. What went on in the background, I would never have had any knowledge of.
Who were they?
Constant contact. The people that produced the commercials, the people that, the mailers.
You mentioned earlier Megan Fitzmartin in your testimony.
Yes,
What was your relationship to Megan Fitzmartin and why'd you bring up that name?
Megan Fitzmartin would show me the brochures before they were being presented, so that I could make sure that everything was correct on the brochure, the mailer, and the same with the commercial.
Okay. What about Jeff Longsworth? Any association or what's your experience or knowledge of Jeff
I
Longsworth?
had the first meeting I had with JPL, was with with Jeff, and then I didn't have any meetings with him after that.
And what was the content of that meeting?
I don't remember. It was an interview.
An interview to be endorsed by the speaker?
And to be put on, an interview for me to be on, to use their services. And it was a back and forth interview. I don't remember the questions.
And what's your knowledge of the role of constant content in your campaign?
I didn't know when we got the bill, I did ask, what is this? And they said, that's our bill. It goes under constant content. I had no idea that that was the name of the parent organization or whatever it was.
Did you authorize all those expenditures?
Verbally, yeah. I
It's-
kept track of what was being spent.
So when you got the bill for 164,000 or what have you, you paid 100 grand. Were the expenditures more than you expected? So they exceeded your campaign treasury, so you had to have you showed a debt?
Yes, but in fairness, I called them and said, I can't pay it all right now, but I'm going to have a fundraiser, and I had a fundraiser, and I fell about $35,000 short. And so I wrote a personal check to my campaign shown as a debt so that I could pay them, because I wanted to pay all of my debts. And that is perfectly permissible in any campaign. You can show a debt and then pay it off later. I've done it before, and I'll probably do it again. And we reported everything correctly.
Okay. So what was your relationship with RJ Mancini?
Very little. I mean,
What little it was, what wasn't?
well, none at all. I mean, I don't know. Did he door knock for me? I don't believe he did. I door knocked for myself. If he did, I didn't know about it.
So if he had testified under oath that he door knocked for you a couple of times, would
I
you,
wouldn't argue it. And then if he got paid, please present me with the bill and I will pay it. Or please give me the in-kind contribution and I will pay it.
was RJ Mancini able to edit and maintain your Facebook page?
I have no idea.
You don't know who?
Chris, I never touch my Facebook page. Never. I don't even read it. In fact, I don't even have it anymore.
So one of the exhibits in the original complaint was RJ Mancini, an email, saying RJ Mancini, it's exhibit number. On my page it's exhibit number 29. That's exhibit number 3. It's within the affidavit, but it's on page 29 within my exhibits. And that's either one, but either one, you get one of these. Okay, so that, just for sake of discussion here, who is that note from at the top of page 29? That's right. So at the bottom of the page, there's,
Oh, are you saying?
no, at the bottom of the page is on what I just handed you, there's page number.
Page 24?
Yeah, I'm saying go to page 29.
Okay, what is this?
That's exhibit 3 at the top, but that was an exhibit number within the within the original complaint.
Okay, so I didn't know this.
I didn't ask whether you knew it. I said, who is the note from?
Stephen Caraway,
Okay. And then what does it say? It's only one line, so what's the line say?
I'm adding you to Jean's Facebook page.
And who is it to?
RJ, I guess RJ Mancini.
Okay, so do you, were you aware that Stephen Caraway had maintained your Facebook page, and could you have assign other people to maintain it?
No.
You weren't aware of that?
Stephen Caraway has helped me on my Facebook page since my days in Congress.
So you're aware of anybody that has the right, you said you already made the representation that you don't maintain your own Facebook page,
No, I don't.
okay?
In fact,
So
I
who
don't
do you
even
think
have-
does? Who do you think does?
Stephen did it as a favor because I don't know how to do it. I don't want to know how to do it. I don't like social media. I find it more not helpful than helpful.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit 5 out of your own exhibits, Mr. O'Brien's exhibits. The Exhibit 5 is they're a little hard because they're not paginated or stable, but Exhibit 5 is the RJ Mancini affidavit.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure. So it should have Exhibit 5 at the top, and that doesn't. She looks at the right thing.
If you look at the affidavit, it's,
Okay.
the item on the end of.
Okay.
Exhibit 5, just what I thought you were
Okay,
addressing.
so what is that? Read the first, is it only one big sentence? So read the affidavit then.
I, Ronald S. Mancini Jr., being first duly sworn, depose and say I was not paid by the Ohio Republican Party to work in the March 2020 primary election on a specific campaign or specific candidate's campaign and was not directed by the Ohio Republican Party or their employees to specifically work or volunteer on the Gene Schmidt campaign for the 2020 primary.
Okay. So you notice there's lots of, I was not specifically. Yeah, but I think hopefully people here would know that if somebody were compensating me and I went out and worked on different campaigns, I'm responsible for reporting it in kind for that amount. So the wording is very careful in this. So my question for you, Ms. Schmidt, is did, to your knowledge, RJ Mancini have the ability to maintain your Facebook page?
My knowledge, no.
Okay. Did RJ Mancini door knock for you on multiple occasions?
My knowledge, no.
So if I were to say to you that I said and sworn to RJ Mancini, okay, and I just want to make sure I'm correct on this. I'm saying what I said. The only two candidates you worked for were Alan Freeman and Gene Schmidt.
Well, then you can't, if you're saying what you said, and you're reading it in, if he doesn't have the chance to cross-examine,
He can cross-examine me.
then you can't say what RJ Mancini said.
I didn't say what I said. I started by reading what I said. Okay.
I'm objecting
I'm
to the
just-
use of the transcript at all, in these proceedings. They're separate proceedings, and he's picking and parsing sections of them, which I thought the chair previously said was improper. And at least if, that's still the view of the chair, if we could direct him not to do it on this or any other witness that he may have in his exhibits.
So if I were to tell you that RJ Mancini told me that, in my personal knowledge, that he only worked on your campaign and Alan Freeman's campaign, would you have any reason to dispute that?
I'm going to object. He's testifying from his question.
That's hearsay.
All right, by the way, on the clock here, so I already expressed early on that I have a hard stop between
Well, I'm going to object to leaving early before the commission member has to be there at 3:30, as I alluded to earlier, Madam Chairman. This hearing is set because he sued you all, and he's known for weeks that it was set for today. So him scheduling an appointment at 1:30 or 2 is done with the intention of trying to adjourn early. I think we ought to go as long as we can.
Really noted. And we express that, yeah. We sometimes go past those 2 o'clock, so.
Well, I asked before we started this, otherwise I would have asked for a continuance to this whole matter to have this hearing because of walking in here with this utter confusion about discovery. And that's why I'm saying, to me,
Okay,
in Ohio, you know, we have a history of only the feds can deal with these kind of issues. And so this whole thing, I said right when we began this hearing that I had a hard stop at a certain time, and I was acknowledged that that would be respected. The commission itself publishes its meeting times and an end time. And in past hearings that I've been part of, they go over, but they don't go over that much. Okay, they don't go over for hours and hours.
okay.
And I think
that's
I would not have begun my case. I would have said, let's have a continuance and we'll begin my case at a future time. If I was being told that my upfront telling you that I had to leave between 1:30 and 2 was not going to be respected.
I might say in response, Madam Chairman, that there's been multiple emails between myself, Mr. Hicks, and Mr. Richter for the last 2 weeks on these subjects. Never once did he say he had an appointment later this afternoon. He said it this morning at 11 o'clock or whatever.
All right, so would you like to move forward?
I'm going to keep questioning Ms. Schmidt, but all I did was observe that we're getting close to the time window I had provided, and I thought that this commission consented to at the beginning of this.
I don't believe the commission consented. I mean, you've certainly stated it. We indicated that one of the members had a hard out at 3:30,
At which time I specifically,
but you know, the commission is here to hear this case, and it will sit as long as necessary to hear the case. That's been our history. You know, I don't think we've ever stopped a hearing because one of the parties had an issue with timing. When a party comes and represents themselves before the commission, they're here until the commission decides to stop.
okay, I just feel like the rules are very variable there. So I would have asked for continuance at the beginning if I understood when I asked and people acknowledged that I said I had a 1:30 to 2 o'clock timeout for me. That's an hour longer than your scheduled hearing time.
When you say our scheduled time, if you're talking about what Mr. Hick or Mr. Hughes puts on a Teams meeting time, it's because we're obligated to put a time out there. The commission started this meeting at 10 a.m. and it goes until the commission decides it's going to stop. That's been the history of the commission. Because we have Teams meeting out there that may state a time, I don't think you'll look at any of the notices that the commission sends out that identifies any kind of a time frame for when a meeting will end.
Well, that's what it says online, but I'm just very frustrated by the notion that the body that's supposed to stand for clean campaign finance is constantly like, I don't know, a person like me, I don't know what the rules are when I come in here. Discovery, not discovery. We don't follow our rules. We don't change the OAC. We do this. We don't. We vote unanimously against denying a discovery motion. This becomes kangaroo when a person has no understanding of what the actual rules of procedure are, timelines, anything. This is the reason Mr. O'Brien has multiple times expressed that you're here because I filed a mandamus action. Damn right I filed a mandamus action. After 20 months from when this was held over for a full hearing. Help me to understand and help Ohioans understand why in 20 months this was not scheduled for a full hearing. What I understand is kangaroo. And so I've expressed on the record up front that I had a hard stop between 1:30 and 2.
And at that time, I said, we have a hard stop at 3:30 and that we oftentimes go very late because we hear the cases until the completion.
Can we just move on? We're wasting time.
Okay. I'd like to request the continuance of this case
I would,
in
object.
respect of the schedule that I said before we ever began testimony.
I object.
Like I said, I know the history of the commission has been to stop when a commission member has to end it in proceedings, but beyond that, we proceed until the commission's done. It's up to the commission whether they want to continue the matter or not. I certainly wouldn't. be inclined
Well,
to
the response is here,
but
but wanting to go forward as far as we can.
Part of the matter is, did I pay bills when I got them? The answer,
And I respect what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. We always respect what you're saying, Mr. Hicks. At this point, I guess it is up to the commission whether we want to continue this matter or whether we would, please, hold on. Or whether we want to continue until our commission member has to leave.
I'd like to move that we proceed with the hearing that is currently being undertaken.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Yes.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question about the nature of the appointment? Because if my memory serves me right, you were asking questions exceeding the time from which you said you had to be in an appointment. We're often pretty compassionate body. If it was something medical or maybe somebody had passed away, something that couldn't be rescheduled. Just curious about the nature of the appointment that you needed to leave for.
So just by clarification, I said that I needed to leave between 1:30 and 2 to get back to Cincinnati for a Zoom call relating to a condominium I have in Florida that was heavily damaged by Hurricane Ian. Okay, so that is the reason where my wife wants me to be there with her. So we suffered some significant damage during Hurricane Ian. There's something that I want to be personally part of. My wife wants me to be there with her. And that's the nature of my request and why I brought up that I had a hard stop between 1:30 and 2 to be able to get back in time for 4 o'clock.
For the record, I'd say I can do a Zoom call on my telephone, and if his wife has a mobile telephone, they can both be on the same Zoom call at the same time with him here in Columbus and her in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And that also could have been rescheduled with sufficient notice, and Mr. Richter could have been advised about it 2 weeks ago.
With all due respect, he was asked, he answered, and I think our opinions on the rest, notwithstanding. So we do have a motion on the floor. We've heard the reasoning. Mr. Hicks would like to get back.
Mr. Chair, just a question, because I know that the motion's on the floor, but we do have a commission member who is not going to be here for the duration of this hearing. Because I don't believe it's going to end by 3:30. It's not where we are right now. So, that we're gonna have to continue it at some point in time anyways. If Mr. Hicks still has more questions. And then Mr. O'Brien certainly has the opportunity to present his case.
At this point, it's, a decision made by the body. I don't have the power to, decide that. We do have a motion on the floor, hearing the answer, hearing Ms. Tavares, Commissioner Tavares's concerns.
Can I have a clarification what Ms. Tavares said about other commission members won't be available for a future meeting?
No, that wasn't
Oh.
about the future meeting. It was about today.
Oh, I see.
To end by a certain time for one of our commissioners.
Sure.
I would just like to add that I also have a schedule. And I had obligations downstairs that I missed for this. I don't know what my future schedule is going to be. In fairness for all of us, we're all busy. I really would appreciate trying to get this resolved today. I will gladly answer any question that you have, Mr. Hicks. Can we just move forward?
At least limited to the charges he's leveled against Ms. Schmidt.
By the way, if it helps the board to miss Tavares' remarks, I plan on calling myself. At a minimum. Okay, so the statement that we're gonna be done by 3:30, I think is a prudent statement, but that's not realistic because I'm gonna call myself as a witness. And I'm probably only 60% through the questions I have for Ms. Schmidt. We basically spent, like 10, 12 minutes now because I just brought up, because I looked at my watch, that it was getting within the window at the time frame that I had mentioned.
I guess my question would be, if you knew you had that hard out, I mean, I think, and you, then with the amount of questions you have, why did we proceed at this point?
Because my experience with this commission, for example, in the Freeman matters, we had 3 days of hearings. So it was not a one, so it's kind of like this. I didn't even know for sure we're gonna have a hearing today because this whole thing with discovery.
Okay,
And I just want to point out,
Thank
I'm
you.
just a citizen of Ohio. I'm not a politico. I'm not being paid by anybody. I don't make anything from this. And I just love to document what happens when you do this and when you bring something forward. And I think this commission should be more respectful of the citizens that bring, this should be the most important type of complaint this commission hears. When a citizen takes the time to bring something forward, invest a lot of time in researching it, it should be given some level of respect.
and I believe it has. I believe we are very, very respectful. We always hear you out. We give you the latitude you request. Please. Just the same respect back to us is all I guess we would ask. So there's a motion on the floor. If someone would like to, there's not been a second to it. So that's where we're at this time. Mr. Commissioner Knight asked that, or made the motion that we continue. Mr. Tavares, expressed concern. So where are we at with that?
If there's no second, we can know that the motion dies for a lack of a second. And then go forward from there.
All
Let's
right,
go.
motion has died for lack of a second. So at this point, we proceed. So please continue.
Now, I just want to, I appreciate,
One point, I just want to make sure I understood. I was motioning that we continue today, that we go
Okay.
forward.
Right, correct.
So if that's not approved, why are we proceeding? I don't understand. Are we continuing the case?
Yes, no, we're actually going forward right now. Are you saying you want to continue the case?
No, I wanted to go forward now.
That's what we're doing, yeah.
I guess I missed, we didn't vote yes, so.
We did not, there was no second.
Oh,
So
okay,
Mr.
just
Hicks-
to understand what happened, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Hicks is going to continue right now.
okay. And I just want to make the comment, I appreciate your statement of respect back and forth. But I want to remind you that until this morning, a motion that I filed 14 months ago and repeatedly asked for it to be scheduled for a motion hearing, a motion that I came, as some of you remember, back in September and stood up and read through all the open cases where I was given time, I appreciate, to speak. So I just want to make sure that your perception of respect back and forth might be different than mine. Because I shouldn't be having to stand here, the commission had 20 months, 14 months on a motion for discovery to resolve those issues so it could be done. But I'm left in the lurch where I come here today and I don't know what we're doing.
Mr. Hicks, please, that's not forwarding this case at all. And I think that if we are really trying to make sure that we move forward with this case, that's been noted several times. So can we please move forward with your questions for Ms. Schmidt, please?
Like Cuba. Okay. So I said that this commission is like Cuba. I want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please move forward with your question.
So, all right, let me look at my notes here. I would like to look at the, I want to direct another question relating to the affidavit of, Mancini. But do you still have that before you, Ms. Schmidt? Did you consult with Mr. Mancini on this affidavit at all?
Nope.
Okay. Would you say that the affidavit is vague because it never says he didn't work on your campaign. It just says he was specifically not assigned.
No, I can't comment on that. I didn't write it.
Affidavit speaks for itself as well.
Well, how do you interpret that? Do you interpret this as?
My interpretation is not important on this. Next question.
How do you interpret this affidavit? Do you
We have-
interpret it as him saying that he did not work on your campaign?
I can't interpret this. I didn't write it. Next question.
Well, you can read it, can't you?
I read it. I didn't
She's
write it.
answered.
Writing and reading are two different things. Next question.
Do you interpret it as meaning that he didn't work on your campaign at all?
I have no comment.
You have no comment, okay? I want to direct you to the other exhibit that your counsel provided, which is Rob Secours' affidavit. What number is that in your exhibit, Ron?
I believe that it's attached to exhibit 4, which is the motion to dismiss that was filed.
Okay. Do you have a copy of that before you? You can give her a copy of your.
Sure.
So this is Rob Secours' affidavit. Could you read the second paragraph of the
The
affidavit?
Republican Party did not specifically assign R.J. Mancini or any other person to specifically work or volunteer on the Gene Schmidt campaign for state representative in the March 2020 Republican primary.
Would you interpret this as saying that Mancini did not work for your campaign?
I can only look at the words on the page. I can't make any assumptions beyond the words on the page.
So this affidavit tied out to, I think Mr. O'Brien pointed out, it tied out to your motion to reconsider, is that correct?
Dismiss.
Okay. But that was after my complaint. And that this affidavit was brought forth. Given the nature of my complaint, do you have any knowledge as to why it didn't just specifically disclaim that R.J. Mancini worked for your campaign?
I didn't write it. I can't make an assumption.
Well, but you, through your counsel, put it before this commission.
She answered your
I
question.
answered the question, move on.
No, okay, I understand you're frustrated, but you have to be respectful. Thank you.
Okay, so did you, after your motion to reconsider or motion to dismiss failed, did you make any attempt yourself to clarify with R.J. Mancini a black and white answer as he did or did not work on your campaign?
No,
Why not?
I had no communication with him.
That's, you already said that. You didn't do it. So I'm asking, why didn't you do it?
I never talked to him. I mean, I don't know why. I didn't talk to him. I didn't do it. I didn't.
She's answered the question.
Well, I don't think she had, because
Okay, I did not talk to him personally. Never talked to him personally about whether he worked on my campaign or he didn't work on my campaign. I had no knowledge that he was working on my campaign. So how would I know to ask the question if I didn't know he was doing the work?
well, did you have knowledge that he had been working on your campaign after my complaint?
No,
So when you got my complaint, do you make any attempts? So the complaint alleged some very specific things. Did you make any attempts to clarify with the parties that were involved in the complaint, particularly R.J. Mancini and Stephen Caraway, what the truth was in terms of their, what the truth was?
I hired an attorney.
So when I filed a complaint, and I'll just use one of the examples, that R.J. Mancini had worked for your campaign and been compensated by the Ohio Republican Party and was not disclosed on your campaign finance reports as an in-kind or any kind of contribution. Your answer to that wasn't to call R.J. Mancini and ask him if he had worked on your campaign And to clarify his payroll status, your reaction was to hire an attorney?
Mr. Hicks, knowing your past history, I called an attorney.
Since you brought up my past history, what's your view of my past history?
I have
That's,
no
Objection.
comment. I have no comment.
that would,
No comment.
What did you mean by knowing my past history? What specific events will cross
I
your
have no
mind?
comment.
Well, objection to any questions.
She mentioned it. It's a fair question, given that she mentioned, given my past history, I'm asking, what is the basis for that?
I have no
Hey.
comment.
I'd like the witness to answer. But my past history, what was she referring to?
Con-
It wasn't answered. She made the rest of it. Well, you can compel her to answer.
She said she had no comment on your past history and what she thinks about it.
No, she made a statement, is given my past history, and I asked, what events in my past history crossed your mind when you made that statement? That's a totally fair and germane question. She's the one who said it.
she also said she has no comment. She's answered that 3 times.
That's not I don't think that's a court legal answer. No comment. I'd like to be being questioned as a witness and be able to just say no comment to random questions. Name any events in my history that caused you to just say, given my history.
Objection again, on what she may think about Mr. Hicks's past history. It's irrelevant. At least I understood the rules of evidence up here, the OAC applying here, and what she thinks about him is irrelevant.
I didn't ask what she thinks about me. She brought up what she thinks about me, and I asked what were the name and events in my history that she's crossed her mind.
Please move on, Mr. Hicks. How does that relate to whether there are campaign finance reporting inaccuracies or incomplete information?
Because Mr. Ricker, I'm directly following up on her statement that when she had the opportunity to contact RJ Mancini to find out what actually happened, instead she hired a lawyer. That was her representation, not mine.
But what does that have to do with anything, with asking the question that you're asking now?
I think it's important to understanding her mental state relating to this whole set of things and her ability, her credibility as a witness.
I think the objection was sustained. Move on.
So when did you receive a bill from Constant Content?
Which time?
The 160, the one that related to $164,000.
It's in the document.
The bill is? I didn't see the bill in there.
What? What's the?
You had a bill in your documents relating to when, what's in here? The second pass, when David Goldstein collected the debt, there was a bill from Constant Content and Materials, but not for the first pass, the $164K. Yes, and his exhibit 7. There's an invoice from Constant Content dated 11/4/2020, but that's for the second thing. That's for the 20,260. I asked about the first one, the 164,000.
I paid the bill, I'm presuming very shortly after I received it. My track record is to pay the bills when I receive them.
So when was the check written?
April 2nd, 2020.
April 2nd.
Okay, so you believe, I don't have that in front of me, but I'll take that as, so you believe that the invoice was somewhere around shortly before April 20th.
April 2nd.
April 2nd, I'm sorry, April 2nd of 2020. in that payment. Okay,
in probably 24, 48 hours.
okay. Within 24 to 48 hours. So you think it was, did you pay it or did your husband pay it?
Peter paid it.
But you reviewed it prior to him paying it?
Yes,
Okay. When I filed my complaint, one of the items within it had to do with Stephen Caraway. What did you do to try to confirm with Stephen Caraway if he had been paid or not relating to helping you with your campaign?
I chose not to discuss those things because knowing it was a complaint, it was better to hire a lawyer and let the legal process do its work.
Did you instruct your lawyer to reach out to either Mr. Mancini or Mr. Caraway in relation to their role in your campaign and payment?
I don't know. I don't remember. I doubt it. But I don't know. I turned it over to Mr. O'Brien and he handled everything.
So Mr. O'Brien made the assertion up front, I wrote it down, about your character and that you're a person who knows the rules.
I do. I know that you have to pay the bills that are presented. I know that you have to do them in a timely fashion. I know that there is a process that the state requires you to do that. I understand the disclosure issues involved. Yes, I do know those rules, Mr. Hicks.
So what are the rules about in-kind contribution?
If you have received an invoice for an in-kind contribution, you are obliged to report it.
So you believe that within the rules, that if you don't receive an invoice of an in-kind contribution that you're aware of, you don't need to report it?
If you are aware of an in-kind contribution, then yes, you have to report it. I was not aware that those kinds of, I don't believe that anybody was door knocking for me to begin with, because I did it myself. But if there was some sort of activity going on, I clearly didn't know it. But had I been given an invoice on either paying for it or an in-kind contribution, I would have reported it. I can't report what I don't know. In fact, it's illegal for me to do that.
That was a very common refrain from Alan Freeman. I can't report what I don't know. And I think one of the things that came up with that was the obligation of a candidate to take reasonable steps to know, and that they can't hide behind ignorance. So once you became aware of my complaint and the allegations within it, and conceptually might have been aware of, because Mr. O'Brien said he was watching the Freeman hearings last night, you might be aware of testimony that people gave under oath. What steps did you take? Your husband, or that you're aware of, to try to determine, was there an in-kind contribution amount that you should show on your campaign finance for either Stephen Caraway or RJ Mancini?
I'm in the election. I had no knowledge that they were doing anything that I needed to have some sort of a payment or an in-kind contribution to be reported. To this day, I still don't know whether they had done anything that needed to be reported or not. I received a complaint via Mr. Hicks on this. I hired Mr. O'Brien as my legal counsel. I'm here today to tell you that and the difference between myself and Mr. Freeman is I did pay the bills when they were presented. I didn't not pay a bill because I didn't want to, or because I didn't know about it as his claim. I was presented bills from Constant Content and I paid those bills. I had no knowledge that there might have been activity out there that I should have been reporting because nobody presented that to me. I cannot, I'm going to say this again, I cannot put something down in a report if I don't know what the amount is or what the activity is. It is illegal for me to make an assumption. Thank you.
So you stated earlier that you talk to Stephen Caraway almost every day.
Yes,
Okay. In the 20 months since my complaint, did you ever ask Stephen Caraway to present to you any appropriate bill for any in-kind accounting for money
No.
he was paid to work with your campaign?
He did, he is a friend. Our relationship is very special. Whatever he did, he would do out of friendship, as a volunteer, as somebody that wants to help me, just as I would do it for him.
The question though is, during all these almost daily conversations, okay, once my complaint, not back in the campaign, but once my complaint was there, you never took the time to ask Stephen Caraway in your daily conversations, were you compensated for the campaign help that you provided?
She answered that. She said no.
I would like,
She said no at the very
I
beginning.
said no, and it is no.
She answered that.
so you, okay, okay, and you never contacted or had anybody contact RJ Mancini?
Object, anybody could, be, counsel, and counsel, something that, may well have done that.
And she answered that. She said no.
So,
Mr. Hicks, she said no several times.
okay,
I mean, it's on record. She said no.
okay. So, again, I asked the question because I don't think there was an answer as to why didn't you ask? Being that you're an experienced candidate with an unbelievable resume who knows the rules according to your counsel, why didn't you ever bother to ask?
When you are in a lawsuit, we're usually advised to say nothing to anyone except through your attorney regarding the lawsuit. I looked at this in the same manner. You don't go out and talk about it. You don't say, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? You let the legal process go forth. And so, no, I didn't ask him about it.
So if I told you that I think that most candidates, when confronted with an Ohio Election Commission complaint, will take remedial steps if necessary to fix and refile their campaign finance reports, would you dispute that?
I'm gonna object, Mr. Hicks, earlier spoke for everybody in Claremont County and now speaking for all candidates in his question. If he wants to ask it differently, that might be appropriate.
So do you think that, Ms. Smith, do you think that when candidates face election commission complaints, that one of their first courses of action should be to correct any deficient reporting in good faith?
I think the prudent thing is to seek legal counsel. And then on the advice of legal counsel, make the necessary steps if there are necessary steps to make.
Would you give that advice to all levels of the political spectrum, down to somebody running for township trustee or school board, that they should get legal
Absolutely.
counsel? So if their board of election calls them up and asks them about a discrepancy, this happens in Claremont County, I'm sure you're aware. The candidate's response when the board of elections points out a discrepancy and asks for a correction should be to get legal counsel.
Object, that isn't what she testified to.
What did you testify to? Clarify.
The question you
related to a
asked.
Complaint filed at this elections commission.
I think we can, that's speculating on coulda, woulda, shoulda. I think we should stick to what your experience was and what you have experience with her on, or as it relates to your complaints, please.
I think it's important to understand the context of somebody saying that when confronted with these things, their course of action was to not clarify them.
My course of action was to seek legal counsel.
For the fifth time, for the record.
Okay. So can you describe for me how the David Goldstein invoice came about?
It was a registered letter in the mail.
But was that letter in your exhibits?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think it's not in your exhibit.
Letter in the mail.
The Goldstein stuff is exhibit 7 and it's an email to the Secretary of State. It's a email from Mr. Goldstein to Peter Schmidt, and it's an invoice or a revised invoice for $20,260.
The first one,
And then a check that was
And a check.
immediately written and reported.
You're referring to exhibit 7, right, Mr.
Correct.
Brian?
Correct.
So the second page of that I directed commission to and Ms. Smith to. It's not numbered and it has super lawyers at the bottom. The super lawyers. Ms. Smith, who's that a note from?
David Goldstein,
Who's it to?
Peter Schmidt,
What's Peter Schmidt's role in relation to your campaign?
he's my campaign treasurer.
And could you read, it's very short, so can you read the,
I'm attaching the revised invoice based on our agreement to settle the matter. Please issue a check made payable to David Goldstein, LPA, in the amount set forth in the attached invoice. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call me.
okay? And then the next page, the invoice itself,
Yeah,
what's, I may break and read it, but what's the amount on there?
$20,260.
So since the note refers to a revised invoice, what was the original invoice?
I can't remember what the original was, but there was no verification of what the activities were. And so we asked for a revision. And this is what they could substantiate, that the activities that were done were done.
And how did they substantiate that the activities that were done were done?
I don't know. I mean, we established, I don't know, they were very sketchy on how they gave me the first invoice and the second invoice. It was just, you owe this amount. And I said, what? Tell me what I owe. And so they said they verified the 20,000 was what they could verify that I owed. That's what I paid.
And what was that for?
I have no idea.
Well, okay.
They just said,
So I want to,
I would assume that it was for mailings, but I don't know. I mean, getting something 17 months after the election saying you owe an amount, I wouldn't just write the check. I'd try to figure out what was going on. And so they said, this is what Constant Content or whatever it was said you owed. And I said, okay, I'll pay it. And I wanted to get it resolved as quickly as I could. And it took months for Goldstein to get back with me on the actual amount that was owed.
so you're saying that, I thought you said that you got the invoice, was that the first invoice you said you paid within hours, the 164,
Yes,
within a day or two, whatever.
a couple of days.
Okay, the second invoice, you're saying there was something presented and months went by before,
Imagine getting a door knock at the mail and you open it up and it says you owe this amount of money. And you go, I don't know what this is for. So you call the law firm. The law firm takes days to get back with you. And then they said, well, we'll get back with you. And I kept calling them. In fact, I asked Mr. O'Brien to cattle prod this because I didn't want this to drag out as long as it did. And I finally called him and said, look, we're resolving this before the first of the year. Do you understand me? You tell me what I owe. You tell me what it's for. I'll pay it. And that's exactly what they did. They said they gave me the amount and I said, I will pay it.
so,
I can't pay what. I have an obligation to make the right payment. And that's what I did. I wanted verification on the first statement that they gave. What do I legitimately owe? They came up with the second one and I paid it, and it took them that long, Chris. I didn't drag it out. I want it resolved immediately.
so I want to make sure I understand the progression here because, and I'll lay out the invoices just to be clear. So there was invoice one, which was for $164,000 that you paid within hours or a day or a
Right.
very quick period of time.
Yes,
Then there was invoice two,
You paid 100,000 of it.
100,000 of them. Yes, right. No, no.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so there's invoice one that your payment of 100,000 and your recognition of the debt was almost immediate from when you received the invoice. You got, I'm gonna say there's three invoices. It just, I want to make sure we're all saying the same things. So invoice two would have been a first version of a Goldstein invoice. And then per the note, there was some revised invoice later that I assume this was what was invoice three, which was an invoice as a result of an agreement to settle the matter. Is that, do we
because
all understand and do you
Yes.
understand that? And is that a correct characterization?
with a 16-month delay, knowing that Mr. Longstreth faced criminal activity, I wasn't so quick to pay the second bill. I wanted to make sure I really did owe it. And when I realized, when they finally showed me that I really did owe 20,000, whatever it was, I immediately paid the bill. First, we called the elections, the Secretary of State, to find out how to pay it, who to pay it to, and how to report it. And once that was done, then we paid it. Because I wanted to do it accurately and correctly.
Thank you.
So the first page, do you have these in front of you? That it'd be good if you had in front of her the exhibits we're talking about.
That's 7.
Yeah, the first page is 7. I'm just on that.
This one, Mr. Katz, I am Peter Schmidt, treasurer for my wife,
I
Jean.
didn't ask you to read it, but if you want to, you can.
Okay, what do you want to know about it?
So it's, who's it from?
It's from my husband to Mr. Katz.
That's not what I read.
Isn't this what you wanted?
Yeah, but who does it say the from is? Your exhibit, not mine.
Oh, Schmidt for Ohio disputed debt. Is that what you want me to say? What do
You
you want me to
understand the
say?
word from, so who does it say the it's from? Top line.
Oh, Jean Schmidt. Well, my husband did it.
And when's it dated?
Because it says at the end, regards, Jean Schmidt.
So by the way, because I'm exploring these a little bit just for clarification for you and for everybody, this is the first time I've seen these. Okay, so it's dated January 31, 2022. Correct?
Yes,
Okay. So it says here that you spoke to Brian Katz.
yes.
Or why don't you read that sentence where it says, she told me she.
I am Peter Schmidt, treasurer for my wife, Jean Schmidt's campaign, Schmidt for Ohio. She told me she spoke with you on Saturday, 1/29/22 regarding our disputed debt with David Goldstein, LPA, and Constant Contact. We have settled the debt and it will be reported on our 2022 pre-primary report. The invoice was dated 11/4/2020, but we never received anything until 8/6/2021. I've amended our 2020 post general 2020 annual and 2021 semi-annual to reflect the debt. The debt is also listed on our 21 annual report that I just filed. We want to be in compliance. Please let me know if there's anything else we need to do. Now, I had prior conversations with Mr. Katz on how to do this long before my husband sent this email. Prior, one of the things that the Secretary of State will not do, are very cautious about doing, is putting anything in writing. They basically tell you everything over the phone and you have to copy it down. But we put this in writing to document the fact that we really have been trying to pay this debt and trying to do it correctly and consistently with the law. But the Secretary of State will not put anything in writing to you. Thank you.
From my experience, and I get to a question here, having asked the Secretary of State questions, not as elaborate as this, is that the response I get back both verbally and in writing is, we don't give out legal advice. Okay, and that that they tell you, we can't, they almost relentlessly do so, tell you, we don't give out legal advice. You have to seek your own counsel and make your determinations based on your counsel. So did you call, what was remember, the first time I've ever seen this. So you had a call with Mr. Katz on a Saturday, according to this, 1/29/2022. So that was on a personal mobile, or was he in the office that day?
Objection, Your Honor, in terms of, how else she talked to him on a mobile on a Saturday.
I think I can ask how the conversation took place. That's in your exhibit. I'm asking questions about your
I'm not
exhibit.
sure.
The
Okay.
exhibit speaks for itself.
Can I- As I've said, we had multiple conversations. I do not believe they were on a mobile. I think they were in the office. And I may have left him a message saying, you've got to help us with this. And he may have called me back on a Saturday. As other people in the governor's office call me on matters on a Saturday. That is not out of the ordinary to have happen. That wasn't the first time I contacted Mr. Katz. We wanted to get it done right. And you're correct. They say they won't give you legal advice. But I say, well, where do I put this on here? Go look here, go look here, go look here.
Did you at any time contact anybody, or I know you don't file there, but anybody in the Claremont County Board of Elections?
No,
Okay. And so how often do you talk to Mr. Katz?
well, the only time I could talk to him was during this issue.
Okay. And you believe he was in the office when he talked to you on
I
the Saturday?
never- Talk to me. I didn't pay attention.
Well, I thought, I'm just answering, you just said that. You said you thought office. I'm just asking you to clarify.
I don't know. I don't know whether he called me on a mobile or on his office phone. I didn't pay attention to the call.
Who initiated the call?
I initiated the call.
So it wasn't him responding to a voicemail.
No, I initiated the call through the Secretary of State's office.
So you dialed the Secretary of State office number or his personal number? Or you don't remember?
No. Eventually I had his direct line, I'm sure, but no.
Okay. So if I go off of this, I'm trying to piece together the sequences of these events. I'm gonna write them down here. So the first invoice for the $164,000, which is not in an exhibit, would have been somewhere around, what was it, April 20th?
April 2nd.
Second, I'm sorry, I keep doing that. That's my bad. I keep saying 20th. Okay,
2020.
okay. So that was the first invoice. So let me see if I can ascertain from this, when was the second invoice? So the second invoice, it says 8/6/2021 on here.
That was the disputed invoice.
So the second invoice that was for whatever became the $20,000 payment
Mhm.
was 8/6/2021.
Yes,
Do you have that invoice?
I don't know.
Does your husband have that
I
invoice?
don't know.
Okay. And then the third invoice was when?
Sometime before Christmas. We wanted it resolved. We wanted it paid.
When you spoke to Mr. Katz on the 29th of. Here's me look at this. I'm getting confused on the dates here. So if I get this right, and it might help me, it might help the commission members also. The first invoice that was the 164 was 4/2/2020. Second invoice was 8/6/2021, based on this note, based on Exhibit 7. And the third invoice was January 27th, 2022, based also on this exhibit. Your exhibit, yeah, I don't know why you don't have it in your hand, because your exhibit.
You're reading it, Mr. Hicks, for the record.
Well, it was January instead
Well,
of.
but I'd like to have, for purposes of making sure that the witness doesn't then claim I didn't understand what was being asked or any confusion. It'd be good if she actually had the exhibits in her hands that we're talking about. I think that would be normal to go on.
This, what are we talking about now?
And it's the email from Peter to Mr. Goldstein
Mhm.
on the 31st.
So then we paid it on the 31st. I'm not the treasurer. I know we paid it.
Okay. So in those 3 days, so the difference between the second one, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
This is Kansas, I need Goldstein's.
It's 5, would it be correct? By your calculation, Ms. Schmidt, that it's 7 months, 7.5 months from when you received the second invoice until the third invoice. Or the third invoice.
This isn't
It's exhibit 7. I'm still referring to exhibit 7.
exhibit. I believe we paid it before January 31st. But Mr. Schmidt had to report payment. And so the reporting of the payment will be a delay in time from when you've actually paid it to when you report the payment on your filing. So if memory serves me correct, we paid that before 2022, sometime at Christmas week.
Good.
Okay, we actually paid that on, what date is that? No, that's,
Report filed with the Secretary of State's office that's attached to that same.
this is the one, this is the 2020, we need the other one.
No, the city says engineer.
Show me where it says.
My question though wasn't about the payments. My question was about the invoices.
Okay,
So if we want to forestall analysis of the payments, I can re-ask my question about the invoices. And I made a computational error on my part when I said that, kind of like my April 2nd, April 20th computational error, is that the second invoice was August 6th, 2021. The third invoice was 1/27/2022. Both of those were based on exhibit 7, your exhibit. And that means there was 5.5 months. I said 7, but it's 5. And the 5.5 months between when you got the invoice on August 6th, 2021, and when you paid the invoice, not paid,
Reported.
retract. Right, when you, there's an email that you acknowledged and accept the invoice on January 27th. And then you talk to the Secretary of State, Mr. Katz, on how it should be reported on your campaign finance on the 29th.
I'm not getting, I don't know when we paid it. I know that we paid it as.
And say paid it.
I'm still not understanding what you're saying with the invoice, but I'll say you're correct. I don't know.
Well, see, this is why I like you to have the exhibits in your hand, so you can't later say you're confused about what you were answering.
Question with the
Yeah,
exhibit.
and I don't understand
I
your
don't
question.
understand your question with the exhibit. Where's the?
There was no second.
I'm asking you to confirm.
Right.
I'm asking you to confirm. I'm just asking you to yes or no confirm that I have this down correctly. It's not hard. Not talking about the payments. I'm still talking about the invoices.
We paid it on January 28th. So my assumption would be, and it's an assumption and I shouldn't do that, is that we got the invoice quickly before that. And we paid it. So I wasn't gonna wait around on it.
So again, you're answering.
So it's 5
different
months,
than
but Mr. Hicks, it wasn't my fault that it was this late. It was Goldstein's fault that it was this late. We couldn't get him to move on it.
All I asked was that you confirm that the dates I laid out were correct as to the
dates were
invoice.
correct.
Okay, so 4/2/2020 for the first one, 164,000. 8/6/2021 for the second invoice that was disputed by you. And then January 27th, 2022 for the third invoice. And on January 29th, 2022, you spoke to Mr. Katz about how to report it.
Yes,
Okay. What do you remember anything about the August 6th, 2021 invoice?
no, only that it came certified.
Do you remember generally the amount of that invoice?
No.
What took place that you're aware of is a negotiation to come to, as it says in Mr. Goldstein's note, a revised invoice based on our agreement to settle the matter?
That they could document some mailers that were sent out. That's the only thing that they could document.
And you said you don't know what that invoice was for.
3 times she said it for the record.
She's answered that.
Okay. I'm just confused because you said it was a disputed invoice. You questioned what it was about and went through a 5.5 month process. And when I ask you right now, do you know what the invoice was for? You're saying you don't know.
She said disputed mailers.
Disputed mailers. Okay,
So the testimony is that the invoice was for mailers?
that's what they said at the second. Goldstein said it was for mailers. I didn't have it in writing that it was for mailers. He said it was for mailers.
Okay. So I'd like to introduce this exhibit, which is a note that Mr. O'Brien sent me on May 3rd. It's in your stack. It stands out by the color of the type being different.
Is there an exhibit number?
No, because it's one of the added ones. So since it's theoretically, if we ever get one of my exhibits added, it'd be number 14 because that's the next number in my stack. It's the one that's your note, you might recognize that. I'm colorblind, so the blue type or purple type or whatever it is.
It's like a communication.
Did you found it?
I found it, we emailed from me to you, but Ms. Schmidt's not copied on it, so I don't know how she would have knowledge of it.
I don't know that could be a question for her. Did she have knowledge of it, right, Ron?
What is it? Did you write it?
I see it.
I don't know what Mr.
Can we just get her the
Okay,
exhibit?
let's say this.
Like,
I did ask Mr. O'Brien when I couldn't get any resolution with Mr. Goldstein to contact him.
So hold on, I'm gonna hold on this exhibit for a second. So somewhere between 8/6 and 127, you did ask Mr. O'Brien to contact Mr.
I'm
Goldstein?
gonna object to communications between council.
He just put it on the floor. He said it.
Well, you said it was to him. I don't understand what this is. This sleuthing Mr. Beatty and Mr.
Can I finish I don't know what the witness is doing right now.
Well,
She
this
just,
is what I was responding. I don't know.
Madam Chair, I don't know what Mr. Hicks is
Okay.
doing, what his question
All right,
is.
stop. Okay. She has the email in her hand. It's the email you're referencing, correct?
Mr. Richter and
Yeah.
Mr. Hicks.
Okay, so what is your question?
so, but now I want to ask another question because before she looked at the exhibit, so this question is not related to that exhibit. You volunteered some additional information.
Well, sure, I would contact my attorney.
You
That's
know,
fine.
hold on, let me ask the question.
Okay.
I haven't asked the question. Okay, you volunteered some additional information that you had in fact instructed Ron O'Brien to contact David Goldstein over the disputed invoice.
Yes, because they wouldn't call me back.
Okay, but I want to ask about that because that's new information. You didn't say that before. That's something that you said,
It's attorney-client privilege, but it is a record.
but you just revealed it. It's not
Okay.
privileged when you reveal it.
Stop. Well, we're not gonna do this. First of all, we need to level our voices and be respectful of one another. Please ask your question, allow him to finish, and then ask your question or answer the question as it's asked. But like, can we please be respectful of one another?
And at least I'm going to object for the record before I ask the question about any communications she had with me or I had with her about this disputed debt that Mr. Goldstein could not substantiate after he sent it out.
I don't believe I've asked her any questions about the content of your
Let's
communication.
go on with this. What do you want me to do?
No, go ahead, ask, just ask.
Yeah, right. So my question is, about when, since you volunteered that you had told Mr. O'Brien to contact David Goldstein, about when, date wise, did that happen?
I don't know. sometime after I got the letter, sometime after I called them several times and they wouldn't call me back, is when I called Mr. O'Brien and said, I don't know what to do about this.
So the letter you're referring to is the one from 8/6/2021.
Yes,
Okay, and so do you think that was within 30 days,
I don't
50
know.
days, 90 days?
I don't know. It was a phone call to Mr. O'Brien, so I have I didn't write down when I called him.
Okay. So to this exhibit,
Yes.
so I'd like you to go to the second page.
Mhm.
Is that's the last full paragraph on the page. Could you read that out loud?
Objection to reading it, out loud, until you see what, where is it, Mr. Hicks?
The last full paragraph on page 2. It begins, this case is.
And that's a comment from me to you, about, an unrelated case, which doesn't have anything to do with this matter.
You're the one that sent me the note, Ron.
And that doesn't make it admissible, Mr. Hicks. The rules of evidence would seem to apply.
Okay, so I don't know what, you made representations here. Can I just ask the witness to read the paragraph?
Well, I objected, so I assume Mr. Richter is to consult with the chair and she can rule on it before it's answered.
You would say that's sustained.
Can I ask the witness to read the paragraph from line 2, beginning with the
sure.
word reflecting? Is that not allowed either?
To do what?
Line, Mr. Hicks?
The last paragraph, take out the first line about Freeman. The second line, we're partial way through the line, it starts talking about this case, reflecting the constant content debts. Can you read from there?
Still sustained, Madam Chair. This is
Sustained.
not this is not, something that Ms. Schmidt necessarily had anything to do with.
She did, it's her counsel.
That's right.
By definition, she has something to do with it.
She directed to Mr. O'Brien and not Ms. Schmidt. She did not.
Okay, can I call Mr. O'Brien?
Or are you done with Ms. Schmidt?
No.
Well, then we have to.
No, he can't call.
All right, so
Say,
So I can ask her about this document, for example, he makes representations in here about what those invoices were for. I can ask her if she was aware of that. Did she communicate to him what to communicate to me, et cetera?
I have no knowledge that he communicated to you.
So he sent this email delineating elements of this case without your knowledge?
Yes.
So I'll net it in. At the end, it says, the last line, I'm gonna read it. Blah, blah, blah. Picking up with, also filed a report. Let me take the line right before that. It starts with, there's a period, there's the word due and a period, and then the word Rep Schmidt. Rep Schmidt also filed a report after settling a claim that was submitted by an attorney for constant content for an outstanding bill for mail and postage that had never been invoiced by the vendor. That was a representation that your counsel made to me in this email. To your knowledge, is that a truthful statement or not?
I believe it is.
Okay. So that invoice was for, I know you're gonna say it's already been answered, was for what was that, mail and postage?
Well, if I say mail, I would assume that you would think there would be postage attached to it.
Okay, so to be clear, that invoice was not for resources like Stephen Caraway or RJ Mancini working in the field.
No. But if you know anything about hiring consultants or having volunteer consultants, in many cases, and I've been doing this a long time, they plus up their product to pay for themselves. A half a penny here, a half a penny there on large campaigns constitutes a lot of money. Never in my history have I paid a consultant outright. It's always been through the product.
So I guess I'm confused. Was that invoice for mail and postage or for things other than mail and postage that was plussed up in some way?
It's the way that they call it mail and postage. It's their way of getting their salaries paid. It's what they call, they put it inside. When I've done my own campaigns and had my own printing done, it is generally far cheaper than when I have a consultant, because I'm not paying the middleman. I'm doing it directly. That middleman is the consultant, and they're getting a plus up on it, usually a quarter, a half, or a full penny on each one that has been mailed out. Thank you.
So when you, I just want to look at another date here real quick. So that my complaint, my first complaint was filed on August 9th of 2021. So these conversations that you're talking about with David Goldstein were taking place between August 6th, 2021. So right about the time I was filing a complaint. And January 27th, 2022, per the dates we just outlined and agreed to. When David Goldstein contacted you, did you make any attempt to discern whether any costs for RJ Mancini or Stephen Caraway were contained within David Goldstein's invoice?
No,
Why not?
David Goldstein didn't even know what the invoices were for.
Then how do you know they're for mail and postage if David Goldstein didn't know what they're for?
That was, I believe, said verbally.
Was he making that up or did he know?
I have no way of knowing, Mr. Hicks. I only know he came back with, this is what we believe the bill is, and I said, I want to get it settled, I'll pay it.
So during the entire time of the primary campaign, your post-primary reports, did you show any expenses that were in kind or otherwise from the Ohio Republican Party?
No.
So, okay,
We're talking primary, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think, I don't want to be redundant with a question I've asked, but so I apologize, but just to be clear, when Rob Secor did an affidavit or RJ Mancini did an affidavit that said they were not specifically assigned, et cetera, you were not involved in any of that before those affidavits were done?
Nope.
Okay, so when did you see those affidavits? Only after they were produced?
Yes.
Okay,
In fact, I saw those affidavits a couple of days ago. Thank you.
so you didn't see them back on August 10th or 11th of 2021 when we were actually having a hearing?
No,
Not a preliminary review and so
No.
forth? So you had not seen the material that
No.
were submitted for you?
No.
Why not?
didn't see them. I can't answer why not. I don't know why not. I didn't see them.
So your counsel didn't share them with you?
I'm gonna check,
I just think it's quite odd that somebody is presenting documents.
In my case, because I've had counsel before, and until you go to trial, they do a lot of things in the background that you don't know about. Next question.
Thank
I
you.
like the next question, thanks.
Again, she said she was sorry. There's a level of frustration in the room, so.
Okay.
Madam Chair, could we take 5?
Yes.
For a first one?
Yes.
Thank you.
So let's take 5 minutes. It's 2:56. Let's be back at 3:01. We said.
It's weird.
It's 3:04, we're gonna come back into session,
The same meeting.
3:05, and we will continue, I believe, Mr. Hicks, you have a question? Or Ms.
I don't think I had an open question, did I?
I don't know.
I might be Gatorade deprived, so I can't.
Yeah.
I have a few more questions.
Okay.
For her. JPL and Associates, Ms. Schmidt, what's your knowledge of JPL and Associates?
It's Jeff Longstreth.
Okay, I'm talking about JPL and Associates LLC.
It's John Leck, it's his company, I guess. I don't know. I don't have any, it's JPL LLC. That's what I know.
Okay, so you don't know anything else about that or how it was working for people who were endorsed by the speaker?
It was the campaign arm of Larry Householder, the Speaker of the House.
Okay, so now you do know a little more about it than just.
Right, well, you said JPL LLC. I don't know JPL LLC. I know Jeff Longstreth was the campaign arm of. the
Well, I'm
speaker.
being very specific, so I'm asking a specific question about a company named JPL and Associates LLC.
I don't know anything about JPL LLC. I know about Jeff Longstreth, not JPL LLC.
Okay, so you're not aware of JPL and Associates LLC providing resources to benefit candidates that were endorsed by the speaker.
Not the term JPL LLC, no.
Well, I said JPL and Associates LLC.
JPL and Associates LLC.
Okay. You previously mentioned Megan Fitzmartin. Who do you think that she worked for?
I was working for the speaker's campaign arm.
And what was that? I mean,
I don't know, what did they call it? The House Republican Alliance or something? I don't know. I met with her and Jake and John Longstreth. And I don't know who else. And they were the ones that provided the media and literature. And I paid for the media and I paid for the literature. And as I've explained before, every time I've ever done a campaign, I have not paid for the consultant. They plus it up in the product that they produce.
okay, you said that House Republican Alliance.
Maybe that was this year. I don't know what,
I think it might have been a different name
It may have
previously,
been a
but what
different
now
name,
is
yeah.
called the House Republican Alliance.
Yes.
Somebody might hear now.
change the name again.
Yeah,
so
the
I
name
don't know
changes
the name.
lots, but it's basically the,
Is
would it
this-
be fair for me to characterize, it might have a different name now than it did then,
Yes,
but it's the legislative Republican PAC
Campaign
/ operation to support candidates.
yes.
And, okay, so, the House Republican Alliance.
Or whatever it was called.
So, okay, yeah, whatever it was called then. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but what is then in your mind, you were receiving invoices from Constant Content. What was Constant Content to you?
When I received the invoice, they said that's where all the payments are being made through. I went, okay,
And those were payments to your understanding for whatever it was called then, but the House Republican Alliance?
whatever campaign work was done, that was the bill that was presented, because when I got the bill, I said, what is this? And they said, oh, that's us, just pay it to this account, and I paid it to that account.
To your knowledge, did RJ Mancini worked for the House Republican Alliance or whatever it was called then?
Can I interject quickly? The House Republican Campaign Committee or the HR.
That's what it was called then? The HRCC. Okay, back then it was called the HRCC.
I didn't know no, I don't know I barely knew RJ Mancini, and I don't know who he worked for.
Did you think at any point in time that Stephen Caraway worked for the HRCC back then? I know he went, just for clarification for people here, long after the 2020 campaign, Stephen Caraway did work for the House Republican Alliance at that time. So I'm asking specifically about any knowledge you had of Stephen Caraway working for the HRCC back then.
No, not directly, no. I thought he had an indirect, but not a direct.
Okay, and what do you mean by, can you define indirect?
I think he was part of the print. I don't know. He what? When I met with the team, he was not part of the team. I don't know what his role was with the team, but when I met with the team, he was not part of the team.
So when you say the team,
It was JPL, Megan Fitzmartin and somebody else.
can we just have a convention? Call Jeff Longstreth, so we don't confuse his name with a company name. JPL is a company,
Okay,
okay? So who was in this, who was the team?
well, I met with Jeff Longstreth once, and then it was me.
I'm not
I met
asking how
him.
many times you met, I just
I know.
asked the question, who was the team?
I believe the team was Jeff, Megan, Anna, somebody with the main three. And my contact was with Megan.
Okay, did you ever have a contract or agreement with any entity for the services that were being provided?
No,
But you were of the understanding when those services were being provided that those were going to be payable by the campaign?
sorry, what did you say?
You were,
You clarify your question, if you're talking about an oral contract or a written contract, Mr. Hicks?
okay, well, I'll go back to that. I'm asking any contract or agreement, oral or written.
Or
And what was the content of the oral contract?
that they would provide services and I would pay for them.
And that was it.
That's it. No, don't roll your eyes. We have a farm. No, we have a farm. We have a farm. And our farmer has been working that farm for 30 years and never once did we have a written contract.
Let's, again, I shouldn't have to remind, but can we please be respectful? That would include rolling eyes, that would include, maybe being a little bit more, vocal than. So can we please just treat each other with respect? Thank you.
So beyond that, they were gonna provide services and then bill you. You had no other understanding as to what the oral contract was?
No,
So what services did the team that you mentioned? The specific team you mentioned, Anna Lippincott, I believe is her name. Or is it Lippencourt?
Living court.
Lippencourt, Megan Fitzmartin and Jeff Longstreth. Did I leave anybody out that was the team?
that was the team.
Okay, so what services did the team actually provide?
Print media and television.
And from a television standpoint, what services did they provide?
The filming and putting it on television.
Okay, and when you say the filming, is that one or more events?
We only did one.
Okay, so one.
Yeah.
Okay, and can you describe that event? Who was present?
It was at my sister-in-law's house. There were many people present. And I know you're gonna ask if Alan Freeman was one of them. Yes, he was. And I can't remember the other 4 that were present. There were a lot of people there.
When you said other 4, what, did you say other 4?
Candidates.
Okay, so those were candidates. That's what I was gonna ask you to
There were, I
clarify.
think there were 5 and one had to leave early.
5 candidates,
Yeah.
including yourself,
Yes,
that were there. So that was the one and only that took place. Was Megan Fitzmartin there?
she may have been.
Okay. What about mailers? You said that the services they provided were, TV recording and placement. But what about mailers?
They did most of the mailers, but I did my own chasers.
Okay. And the mailers were, what was the process of doing a mailer with them?
They showed me the script, I approved the script, and they mailed it.
The script, you mean
The content of the mailer.
was it did you provide input to the mailer or did they just provide you, here's a mailer, give it a go?
I edited it, would be the proper term. I edited what was being said.
Okay, who was the primary person that you went through the mailers with?
It was usually Megan.
Okay, Megan Fitzmartin. Any other person that you went through mailers with?
I don't recall. I don't believe so.
Don't believe so. Not Anna Lippencourt.
I think so.
Okay, and I'm assuming, but I'll ask the question that Jeff Longstreth was not personally involved with you on the
No.
mailers. Okay,
No.
so Megan Fitzmartin was the person you have a recollection of,
Yes,
and you have no recollection of any other person being involved with mailing.
it's too long ago now.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever had issues in the past with properly reporting expenditures that took place on behalf of you or your campaign?
Maybe. I don't know. With the Elections Commission?
In any regard?
Yes.
Okay, can you describe any particular instances where you have had issues with not disclosing money spent on your behalf or on the behalf of your campaign?
It was a federal issue and I am not at liberty to discuss it.
What do you mean by you're not at liberty? to
I'm not
discuss
at liberty to discuss it. I'm not going to say anymore.
Why are you not at liberty? to
I am
discuss it?
not at liberty to discuss it and I'm not going to say anymore.
I'm gonna ask the commission to ask the witness to respond.
I'm gonna object as to what a federal matter, which would have been 20+ years ago, has to do with reports filed on March 4th and June 4th of 2020.
Well, I think it goes to, I guess the veracity and what the, history is with campaign finance filings. And so I think there's a certain relevance there. Can you explain why you can't go into any further on that? Is there some sort of an agreement that was entered
Yes.
into that keeps you from speaking about it any
Yes.
further?
An agreement with who?
And Mr. Richter, I can't talk about this and I'm not going to talk about it.
If you want to, I can maybe talk to her in the hall for a second and see if there's a way of
Yeah, would you please?
getting around.
Look,
Just
it's an issue. No, I wanted to move on. There was an issue. It was settled. I've been.
By the way, I
told
would
not
advise her to
talk
take
about
time
it.
with her counsel versus to start answering.
Stop, please, let her talk.
It was an issue. It was resolved. It was with the Federal Elections Commission. And I'm not at liberty to talk about it, but everybody was satisfied in it. We came to an agreement not to agree, but I can't talk anymore about it and I'm not going to. I don't need another legal issue.
I think you've got what you're wanting to get.
I know, I think this goes
An
directly,
agreement.
this goes directly to Ms. Schmidt having a history of not reporting things properly on campaign finance reports.
And I think by
history-
doing this, you made that point.
Now, I want to understand what happened in that case to see if there's any correlations between that case and this case.
If she's telling you she's not legally allowed to talk.
I want to know then the basis. I'd ask them to produce, what's the basis by which she's not legally, is she in the witness protection program?
Your Honor, Chairman, I'd move to strike that comment, and I would also have an objection based on prior bad acts under evidence rule 402 are not admissible. If indeed that's what it is, and I have no idea, but it certainly has nothing to do with this case.
Can you just move on, Mr. Hicks? Let's try to get.
No, I
this
think it's a
moving.
really important issue, and then I'd like to either brief on it or get an opinion. Because I'm trying to establish a past pattern of not reporting things on campaign finance reports. And this mysterious, I'm not allowed legally to talk about it. I don't know what the basis of this claim is or any legal veracity to it.
And at least my view is we ought to talk about the 2 dates, the reports and questions, the primary and
Well,
question.
that would be your
Not something that ever happened 20 years ago that has nothing whatsoever to do with this case. We've gone so far afield and given him leeway so far afield that I'm going to continue to start objecting when he does this. Thank you.
I would like the witness to either answer or produce the basis upon which she's saying she's not legally allowed to discuss a prior campaign finance issue. If the commission needs to take time to think about this, I'd welcome you doing that, because I think we're getting into issues here that are really important.
But if someone tells you legally they're not allowed, why would you not believe that? I mean, if there's a,
Because I'm unaware, can anybody in this room tell
well,
me,
that doesn't matter.
well, you asked me a question.
But I'm saying if she legally tells you that, then why can we not move forward until we can figure that out? Can we?
Then I would say we should stop here and figure that out, because I'm not gonna accept this notion that there's some mystery reason she can't legally talk about a question about past campaign finance reporting. I'm unaware. I don't know if anybody else is.
I refuse to answer the question, period. Put it on record. I refuse to answer the question.
Because it
But
might
I'm not
incriminate you.
going to answer the question. I'm not permitted to answer it. I'm not going to answer it, and I'm not going any further into it. Period.
So you're refusing to answer on the grounds that it might incriminate you?
No,
You
don't.
can do that in a civil, you can answer, you can take the fifth on individual questions.
It's 20 years old.
Can I just say something? I'm not going to have him twist my words. I've answered the question by saying I cannot answer the question. Period. I don't think we need to negotiate this. I can't do it.
You can't talk about the already public knowledge about this issue?
Whatever's in the
Okay.
public, you can read about. I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not at liberty to discuss it. I've told you that.
That's your answer. So it would seem we're at an impasse. Are you refusing to move forward?
I want the witness to answer the questions,
Well,
or for her to produce what's this legal basis by which she's not allowed to answer questions about past campaign finance reporting.
okay,
I'm unaware of any legal basis that that would be the case.
well, that doesn't mean it's not there, just because.
Doesn't mean it is either.
It does.
And you asked me the question, Ms. Kaufman, you asked me the question
I know. but-
about why wouldn't I just accept it? Okay? No, I wouldn't just accept it. If she's
That's not
making
what
the
I said.
assertion,
I said.
I wanna know what the assertion is based on.
So, okay. What's our recourse at this point?
Well, I'd say, we can always come back to this issue, just move on.
We can come back
That's
to
right.
that is what I was trying to get at, if we can go forward now.
Unless this is his last question, then we could adjourn for the day, but I assume he has more questions. So why don't you ask your next question?
Well, when
no,
I,
Mr. O'Brien, okay, yeah. I'll
Chair the meeting.
chair the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
So if you could please move forward and then we can come back to this at a later.
I don't
time.
want to come back to this. I want to get this addressed now. We're currently at 3:23. You guys have put forward a 3:30 stop. I don't want to proceed into any more questions until I get answers to these questions. Because some of my future questions are predicated upon what happened with our past campaign finance filings.
In fairness, I won't be able to answer those either. I'm
Thank you. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. So at this point, if you won't move forward and you cannot move forward, then I think we're at an impasse and it's at this point, we are gonna have to continue this matter. I have some dates and hopefully they will be dates that are acceptable to you all. And I will give you the dates if you'd like to look and see what your availability is.
I know Ms. Schmidt, when I asked that question, told me she had a granddaughter's grandson on May
Graduation.
25th, her next meeting date.
It
So
would be on June 22nd,
I'm out of town. At a wedding,
okay, on 7/20,
7:20 might,
July.
yeah, July 20, or August the 10th.
August the 10th might be that primary,
Oh,
or is that a Thursday?
That's a Thursday.
August the 10th is a Thursday. Their meetings are always on Thursday, right? Pretty much.
Yes, always.
So
7/20 or 8/10, since the 22nd is not gonna work.
I would prefer July 20th.
That's acceptable to you?
At this point, unless I'm called into session and it's a serious vote, then I won't be able to be here.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes, it's fine with me, Madam Chair.
thank you.
Can I ask a question is, on the issue of her ability or not for testifying on the issue of her past campaign finance reporting, what steps do we need to take, or does the commission need to take to clarify the legal basis of that? Do we brief it? She briefs why she can't testify on that, and I brief why she should?
Well, I think
I would suggest that I talk with her and then I can communicate with you and Mr. Richter.
that's what I was gonna.
And me?
He said he-
Okay, I'm sorry.
You,
My bad,
and
my bad.
Mr. Richter.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll resolve that as to what needs to happen so we can clarify the issue beforehand.
correct.
Can I ask another scheduling question? So May 25th, where Ms. Schmidt said she's not available, okay? I have a conflict on that date, but I can change it if I absolutely need to. And right now, there's three other things. The two Freeman matters and the Brian Stewart matter that are all scheduled for the 25th. Don Bry is already saying he wants the Freeman ones moved. So I just want to put out there on the record that if there was a way to move all of those things to the July 20th, then that would be better for my schedule. It would clear that. And already you've got Don Bryce saying he's not going to do the 25th on the preliminary reviews around the other Alan Freeman cases. I'm not necessarily asking for an answer to that right now, but
Yeah, I'll look into it. That's certainly a possibility, but I'll look into it.
and I asked, just if you bear with me, I'm gonna check my phone real quick. I asked Representative Stewart. I asked him, I just want to see if he responded. I asked him if he was okay with switching to his out. And it doesn't look like he responded, so hopefully he'll respond. Yes.
Well, you can leave it with us. You know, if it gets in here. You can take it with you.
So at this time, this matter will be continued to the 7/20/2023 meeting of the Ohio Elections Commission. Do we need that vote or?
Not necessarily, I think all parties are agreed.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just continue for that day.
So since that works for everyone, we're gonna go ahead and continue this matter at that time. So are there any other?
Not from my perspective.
So having nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion. Ophelia thirded it. Um,
I apologize.
So we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 7-0. This meeting is adjourned.
By the way, I didn't think it was possible to have a baby during a meeting like this for this group, without any disturbance whatsoever. It's amazing. Hopefully thought medicine's not part of it.
Oh.